Welcome back to the deep dive. I want you to, just for a second, put yourself in a specific headspace. It's a Tuesday morning. You run a mid-sized manufacturing firm, maybe you make auto parts, something like that. Business is good.
Mm-hmm.
You're sipping your first coffee, scrolling through emails, thinking about your 10:00 a.m. meeting, and then someone from IT bursts into your office. They don't knock, they're pale, they look like they've seen a ghost.
That is never, ever a good sign. When the IT director stops knocking, you know your entire world has just shifted on its axis.
Exactly, and they tell you the production line has stopped, the shipping software is completely frozen, and when they look at the servers, every single file has a new, weird extension. It's not .doc or .xls anymore, and on every single screen in the building, there's a simple text file, readme.
The ransom note. The exact moment the power dynamic completely, utterly flips.
Suddenly, you're not a CEO anymore. You're a hostage. And the person holding the gun, well, usually they're a ghost, a faceless handle on a dark web forum, a shadow in the digital ether.
And that's been the standard operating procedure for, what, the last decade of cybercrime? We talk about these groups, Lockbit, Revol, Black Basta-like. They're forces of nature, like hurricanes or earthquakes. You can't arrest a hurricane.
No, you just clean up the damage and hope your insurance is going to cover it.
Right.
But today is different. Today, we're not talking about a group or some kind of digital storm. We are actually pulling back the curtain to look at a specific human face. We are talking about a 35-year-old Russian national named Oleg Evgenievich Nefedov.
And this isn't just, some internet sleuthing or Reddit rumors. This is the German Federal Criminal Police, the BKA and Ukrainian authorities officially, publicly, naming him as the head of the Black Basta ransomware gang.
This is a huge development. I mean, we have an Interpol red notice.
Yeah.
We have a name. We have a face. So our mission today is to really unpack this. We need to understand how a ghost gets caught. We need to look under the hood of a criminal enterprise that has generated over $100 million.
And we have to ask the big question. If they can find him, if they can unmask the head of Black Basta, what does that really mean for the future of digital anonymity? Is the era of the untouchable cyberlord finally coming to an end?
Before we get into all the spycraft, the blockchain analysis, and the, frankly, fascinating corporate structure of this gang, I do want to mention that this deep dive is brought to you by pressreleasecloud.io. In a world where information moves this fast, if you need content creation and distribution that actually gets seen, they are the experts you want in your corner.
Absolutely. Getting the right message out there is, well, it's half the battle, isn't it?
It really is. Okay, let's start with the man himself. Segment 1, the man in the notice. Who is Oleg Nefedov?
It's so interesting because for a very long time, if you asked who runs Black Basta, the answer from the entire intelligence community was just a collective shrug. It was a complete black box.
Right.
But now, thanks to this investigation, the profile is surprisingly specific. He's 35 years old, he's a Russian citizen, and the belief is that he's been operating from the shadows for years, orchestrating these massive high-value attacks all over the globe.
And the shift here is what really grabs me. He went from being a total unknown, maybe a username in some encrypted chat log, to landing squarely on Interpol's red notice list and Europol's EU most wanted list. Now, I see red notice in movies all the time. It usually involves Ryan Reynolds or The Rock running across rooftops somewhere. But practically speaking, for a guy who's probably sitting in Russia, what is a red notice, really?
It's a great question because there's so much Hollywood misconception there. People think Interpol is this global police force. They think there are Interpol agents with badges and guns who fly around the world kicking down doors.
They aren't the world police.
Not at all. Interpol is more of a facilitator. It's an organization that helps police forces from different member countries cooperate with each other. They don't have a standing army. They don't have a jail. So a red notice isn't technically an arrest warrant in itself. It is a global request.
A request to do what?
A request to law enforcement in all the member countries, that's most of the world, to locate and provisionally detain a person pending their extradition.
So it's a global be on the lookout flag.
Exactly. It's a massive one. It tells the police in France, in Thailand, in South Africa, in Argentina, hey, the judicial authorities in Germany have issued an arrest warrant for this man. He is a high-priority target. If you see him at your border, if you see him checking into a hotel, stop him.
So it effectively just shrinks the entire world for him?
Drastically. It turns the globe into a minefield. He can't leave home.
And the charges attached to this notice. I mean, they're not light. This isn't just mischief or some kind of unauthorized access charge.
Oh, far from it. We are looking at Computer fraud, data tampering, commercial blackmail, and this is the big one, forming a criminal organization. But here's the legal nuance that I find truly fascinating, and it's something you really need to grasp to understand the gravity of this.
Okay.
The authorities are holding Nefedov personally accountable for all the attacks carried out by Black Basta's affiliates.
Wait, hold on. Let's pause on that.
Yeah.
Because Black Basta is huge, right?
Yeah.
Are you telling me that if some random hacker halfway across the world uses Black Basta's software to hack a bakery in Ohio, Nefedov is legally on the hook for that specific crime, even if he was asleep in Moscow when it happened?
That is exactly the legal argument they're making, yes.
What?
They're positioning him as the architect, the brains of the operation. The logic is, if you build the bomb, if you supply the bomb, and you tell people where to plant the bomb, you don't get to wash your hands of the explosion just because you didn't personally light the fuse.
That sets a heavy precedent.
It does. He facilitated the deployment, he built the tools, he set up the infrastructure. Therefore, legally, the argument is that he is liable for the hundreds and hundreds of ransomware incidents worldwide that used his platform.
It just feels so rare to get this specific. Usually we just hear, the Black Basta group did this. We never hear, Bob from accounting did this, or in this case, Oleg from Russia.
It is extremely rare. I mean, piercing that corporate veil of the cyber underworld is a major, major milestone for law enforcement. These operators, they rely on anonymity.
Of course.
They use Tor, they use secure messaging apps like Jabber or Telegram. They hide behind layers and layers of proxies to cut through all of that and say, no, this is the man, this is his birthday, this is where he's from. That sends a shockwave through the entire cybercriminal community.
It tells them you are not invisible.
Exactly. It changes the game from playing whack-a-mole with servers to actually hunting human beings.
Right. But to understand why catching him is such a big deal, we have to look at what he actually built. Let's move into segment 2 and look inside Black Basta. Because from everything I've read, this isn't some guy in a hoodie in a basement. This looks like a Fortune 500 company from hell.
It is absolutely a business, a criminal enterprise in every single sense of the word. First, just look at the scale. The financial impact alone is staggering. They have extorted over $100 million.
$100 million? That's just an insane amount of money. That's not stealing credit cards money. That's IPO money. That's generational wealth being built on crime.
And that's just what we can definitively track through the blockchain. The actual number could easily be much higher. The victim count is over 600 organizations worldwide. And we're not talking about small targets. We're talking healthcare providers, manufacturing plants, critical public services.
These aren't just faceless entities on a spreadsheet. These are hospitals that suddenly can't access patient records, delaying life or death surgeries. These are factories that have to shut down production for weeks, costing millions per day.
The disruption is terrifyingly real.
But how do they scale like that? How does one guy, or even a small core team, hit 600 huge organizations all over the planet?
Well, they don't do it alone. They use a business model called RATES, ransomware as a service.
Break that down for me. It sounds like something I'd subscribe to on the cloud, like Microsoft Office or Salesforce.
The naming is completely intentional. It's meant to mimic the legitimate software as a service model. I think the best analogy is to imagine a franchise model, like a fast food chain.
Okay, so in this analogy, Nefedov is the CEO of the burger chain.
Exactly. Nefedov and his core team are corporate. They do all the R&D. They build the product, which in this case is the malware, the encryption tools, the payment sites on the dark web. They handle the infrastructure, the servers, the back-end support.
And who are the franchisees?
They're called affiliates. These are other criminals, freelance hackers, essentially, who sign up to use the Black Basta brand of their tools. The affiliates are the ones doing the actual legwork. They find the vulnerable company, they do the breaking and entering, they deploy the virus that Nefedov's team built.
So Nefedov provides the gun, and the affiliate is the one who goes out and pulls the trigger. How do they split the cash?
It's a revenue share. And it's very, very lucrative for the affiliates, which is how Black Basta attracts top criminal talent. The affiliates typically get to keep 70 to 80% of the ransom payment.
Wow, that's a huge cut.
It is. The core team Nefedov's crew takes the remaining 20 to 30% as their licensing fee.
That completely explains the scale. Nefedov doesn't need to hack 600 companies himself. He just needs to build a really robust, effective tool and then let 50 other guys go out and use it.
Precisely. It allows them to scale massively without the core team having to micromanage every single intrusion. They just sit back and watch the commissions roll in. But there's another layer to their business model that makes them particularly dangerous. It's called double extortion.
This is the part that always gives me the chills, because in the old days, ransomware was sort of simple, right? We locked your computer, pay us $500 to unlock it.
Right. It was a nuisance. But companies got smarter. They started having much better backups. And if you have a good offline backup, you don't actually need to pay the ransom. You just wipe the infected systems and restore from your backup. You might lose a day of work, but you don't lose millions of dollars.
So the criminals lost their leverage. They were locking the front door, but the victims had spare keys hidden under the mat.
Exactly. So they evolved. They adapted. Now, they don't just encrypt the data. Before they lock any files, they spend days or even weeks quietly moving inside the network, stealing the data. They exfiltrate the most sensitive information employees, social security numbers, trade secrets, legal documents, financial records.
So they take a copy first.
Yes. And then they trigger the encryption. So now, even if you have perfect backups and you can restore your systems in an hour, they send you a second message. Hey, we noticed you restored your systems. Good for you. But we have 500 gigabytes of your private emails and client data. Pay us, or we put it all on the internet for the world to see.
It's a pincer move, a total nightmare.
It is. It's a breach of privacy. It's a compliance nightmare. Think about GDPR fines or HIPAA violations. And it's a public relations disaster. That's the double bind. And Black Basta is known for being disturbingly professional about this whole process.
Professional how? You mean they have good customer service?
Paradoxically, yes. They run a dark web negotiation portal that looks and feels legitimate. It has a chat window. Victims can log in. They can even upload a small sample encrypted file to test the decryption tool and make sure it works.
Like a free trial for criminals.
Exactly. You see, Black Basta wants a reputation for reliability. If word got out that they took the money and didn't give the key, or if they didn't delete the stolen data, no one would ever pay them in the future. So they actually have a reputation for honoring the deal. It's twisted, but in their mind, it's just good business ethics.
It's just incredible how closely they've mirrored legitimate corporate structures. We have a CEO, we have affiliates, we have R&D, customer support. But clearly, somewhere in this well-oiled corporate machine, the gears slipped, because we know who Nefedov is. So let's move to segment 3, the investigation. How on earth did they find him?
This is where it really becomes a detective story. And it was a masterclass in modern digital policing. It wasn't just one agency. It was a collaborative effort.
And looking at the reports, they really threw the kitchen sink at this. Let's start with the money. Follow the money is the oldest rule in detective work. But how do you follow cryptocurrency? I thought the whole point of crypto was that it's anonymous.
That is probably the biggest myth in all of cybercrime. Cryptocurrency is not anonymous. It is pseudonymous.
What's the difference?
Every single transaction is recorded on the blockchain, which is a public ledger. Anyone on Earth can go and see that wallet A sent a certain amount of money to wallet B. It's written in digital stone forever.
You just don't know who owns wallet A or wallet B.
Exactly. But if you watch it long enough and you use these incredibly complex blockchain analysis tools, patterns start to emerge. The investigators traced the flow of the ransom money right from the victims' wallets.
So they watched the victim pay the ransom to the unique address that was in the note.
Correct. And then they watch that money move. They see the split happen in near real time, the 70% going to one wallet, which is the affiliate, and the 30% going to another wallet, the core team.
And they just keep following that 30%.
They follow it relentlessly. They trace it through mixers or tumblers. These are services designed to mix different people's coins together to try and hide the trail.
Like a digital money laundering service.
Precisely. But the analysis tools are getting better and better at seeing through that mix. And eventually, that money has to be used. It has to be cashed out into fiat currency, or used to buy servers, or moved to a wallet that interacts with a compliant crypto exchange that requires an ID.
That's the off-ramp.
Yes. And that is where they find the financial fingerprints. They were able to link specific wallet addresses that held the stolen funds to real-world identities. They found the exact moment where the digital ghost had to show a real ID to access his cash.
So the blockchain, which was supposed to be his shield, actually became the map that led right to his front door. But what about the tech side of things? Did they leave fingerprints in the actual code?
Oh, absolutely. Digital forensics played a huge role here. They analyzed the malware kind itself. You see, every programmer has a style. We call it stylometry in writing, but it applies to code, too.
Like how they name their variables or how they structure a loop?
Exactly. Little quirks. Specific ways they write functions. certain libraries they prefer to link to, even the way they indent their code. By examining the malware, they revealed patterns that linked Black Basta's code to specific developers. It's like handwriting analysis. If you always write the letter G a certain way, it doesn't matter if you're writing a love letter or a ransom note, the G is going to look the same.
And I read that they made some pretty basic infrastructure errors, too.
Even masterminds get lazy, you know? They had configuration errors in some of their servers. They reused components, maybe a specific server setup or an email address used for a domain registration that linked Black Basta's infrastructure to previous criminal operations or even personal accounts.
It's almost comforting to know that they make mistakes.
They always do. It's the asymmetry of it all. The attackers have to be lucky every single time to stay hidden. The police only have to be lucky once to find a single thread to pull on.
And then there's the human element. You can't just rely on code and math. You need people.
That's right. Good old-fashioned detective work. Insiders and informants from within the cybercriminal world reportedly came forward and confirmed that Nefedov was the creator and the main decision-maker.
Why would they turn on him? I thought there was honor among thieves.
The criminal underworld is not a brotherhood. It's a shark tank. It's full of rivalries. People get greedy. Maybe an affiliate felt they were underpaid. Maybe someone got arrested on a lesser charge and traded information for a plea deal. Snitches exist in cyberspace, just like they do on the street corner.
And that intelligence led to physical action. This wasn't just a bunch of guys staring at screens in a dark room. There were actual physical raids.
The Ukrainian raids were an absolutely critical turning point. The Ukrainian National Police physically raided locations associated with the group. They kicked down doors. They seized physical servers, computers, crypto hardware wallets, communication devices.
That's the moment that digital becomes tangible.
It is the smoking gun. When you're holding the actual server that sent the command or the hardware wallet that holds the specific Bitcoin stolen from a victim, that is hard physical evidence. It creates a concrete, undeniable link between the digital crimes and the physical people. It moves the case from theoretical attribution to proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
Now, speaking of connecting dots, there's a fascinating theory that Black Basta isn't exactly new. This brings us to segment 4. The Conti connection.
This is one of the most intriguing parts of the investigation for intelligence analysts. The intel suggests that Nefedov has very strong ties to the disbanded Conti ransomware syndicate.
I remember Conti. They were the big bad wolf from, 2020 to 2022. They were hitting everyone and everything.
They were absolutely massive, but they officially disbanded in 2022, and almost immediately, within weeks after Conti's shutdown, Black Basta emerged.
That's some suspicious timing.
Very. And it wasn't just the timing. That code analysis we were just talking about, it showed significant similarities. The infrastructure setup, the extortion methodology, the negotiation style. It all looked incredibly familiar to the investigators who had been tracking Conti.
So it's the rebranding theory.
Exactly. The expert insight here is that this strongly suggests a transfer of expertise, resources, and even staff. It wasn't a new startup, it was a strategic reorganization. You could think of it as Conti 2.0.
Why did they do that? Why not just stay as Conti if they were so successful?
Brand toxicity. Conti got too big, too famous, they became radioactive. Specifically, after the 2022 invasion of Ukraine, Conti's leadership publicly announced their full support for the Russian government.
Oh, that's a terrible business move if your whole goal is to fly under the radar.
It was a complete disaster for them. It made them a pariah even in the criminal world. It brought massive, focused law enforcement pressure down on them, and it actually caused huge internal strife. A lot of their pro-Ukrainian members were furious.
And that leads us directly to the Conti leaks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. That was a watershed moment in 2022. A disgruntled insider, almost certainly a Ukrainian affiliate, who was angry about the group's political stance, leaked Conti's entire internal chat server. Years of logs.
That must have been an absolute gold mine for the police.
It was an unbelievable intelligence coup. It provided a complete blueprint of their organization. Investigators could see who was talking to whom, who the bosses were, who handled payroll, who developed the encryption lockers. It helped them trace how these specific actors moved from the sinking ship of Conti to the new lifeboat of Black Basta. It effectively gave the police a personnel roster for the entire syndicate.
That is just wild. It's like getting the complete org chart of the mafia handed to you because the boss tweeted something controversial. Okay, I want to pivot just slightly here. I want to get a little technical for a minute. For the geeks listening, and frankly for me, what makes Black Basta's tool so particularly dangerous? Let's get into segment 5, technical sophistication.
Well, their toolkit is definitely high-end. They aren't using off-the-shelf script kiddie tools. First, let's talk about the encryption itself. They use a cipher called Chat for encrypting the files.
Cha-chari. That sounds like a dance step.
It does, doesn't it? But in the world of cryptography, it's known for being incredibly fast. And speed really matters in ransomware. You're in a race against the victim's security software. You want to encrypt as much data as possible before the antivirus notices the anomaly and shuts you down. Jot20 lets them lock up a system very, very quickly. Then they use RSA 4096 to protect the encryption key itself.
And RSA 4096 is what, strong?
It is military grade. You are not brute forcing that key. If you don't have their private key, that data is gone forever. I mean, mathematically, the sun will burn out before you can crack it with current computers.
And they target specific types of servers too, right? I read something about ESI.
Yes, and this is a major tactical advantage for them. They specifically target ESXi servers. These are the hypervisors that run virtual machines in most corporate environments.
Why is that so significant?
Think about a modern company's server room. They don't have 50 separate physical server towers anymore. They have 1 or 2 big physical servers running ESXi, and inside that one box, they're running 50 virtual servers. Your email server, your database, your web server, they're all just virtual files sitting on that one ESXi host.
So if you attack the ESXi host...
It's like locking the main front door of an entire apartment building. You don't have to break into 50 individual apartments. You just lock that one main entrance and everyone inside is trapped. You just encrypt the host and all 50 in those virtual machines go dark instantly. It's maximum damage in minimum time. It's incredibly efficient and absolutely terrifying for IT administrators.
And I assume the malware tries to hide itself while it's doing all this damage.
Of course. It has anti-analysis features built in. It can detect if it's being run in a sandbox, which is a safe test environment that security researchers use. If it smells a sandbox, it just goes dormant. It'll shut itself down to hide its true behavior. It also aggressively kills security processes. It's designed to turn off your antivirus and your monitoring tools before it starts its real work.
So it blinds the guards before it robs the bank. How do they get in the first place? Is this some Mission Impossible scenario with lasers and dropping from the ceiling?
Rarely. It's usually the same depressing standard methods. Phishing is huge, sending a malicious email that looks like a legitimate invoice. Exploiting VPN vulnerabilities that a company forgot to patch. Or, and this is a big one, they just buy access.
They buy access.
Yeah, there is a whole other class of criminals called initial access brokers. Their entire job is to hack into companies, establish a persistent backdoor, and then they just sell that backdoor access to the highest bidder groups like Black Basta for a flat fee.
That is a disturbingly specialized and efficient criminal economy.
It really is. And once Black Basta gets that initial access, they use a technique called lateral movement. They might enter through a really weak point, say a receptionist's laptop that clicked a bad link, but they don't want the receptionist's laptop. They want the crown jewels, the database servers.
So they act like spies behind enemy lines.
Exactly. They map the entire territory. And this is the most important part. They find the backups. Their primary goal during this quiet, sneaky phase is to find and delete all the backups. They want to make sure that when they finally pull the trigger and encrypt everything, the victim is completely and utterly helpless.
That is just cold-blooded. So, okay, we know who he is, we know how he operates, we know the tech, and we know he's on a list, but he's in Russia. This brings us to segment 6, the challenge of justice. Is Oleg Nefedov actually ever going to see the inside of a jail cell?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it brings us right to the safe haven problem. All intelligence suggests Nefedov is currently in Russia.
Yeah, and Russia doesn't exactly play nice with extradition requests from the West?
No. The Russian Constitution actually explicitly prohibits extraditing its own citizens to other countries. And historically, Russia just does not cooperate on cybercrime investigations that are initiated by Western nations, especially not in the current geopolitical climate.
So is he safe then? Is he just sitting in some penthouse in Moscow laughing at this red notice?
Not entirely. I wouldn't use the word safe. I would say he's in a digital prison.
Explain that concept, a digital prison.
Well, the red notice means he is trapped geographically. He can't travel. If he tries to go on vacation to the French Riviera or attend a tech conference in Dubai, or even just transit through an airport in a country that has an extradition treaty with Germany or the U.S., alarm bells are going to go off the second his passport is scanned.
But criminals get bored, right? They get arrogant. They want to spend that $100 million.
They do. And history shows this again and again. We've seen so many cases where cybercriminals got complacent. They went on vacation to Thailand or the Czech Republic or the Netherlands, thinking they were flying under the radar, maybe using a fake passport, and boom, they get arrested at the airport. We've seen it happen to other high-profile hackers. The world is a very large place, but for him, it is now very, very small.
So his entire world is now limited to Russia. He can have all the money in the world, but he can't actually see the world.
Right. And there is another layer to the law enforcement strategy here. Even if you can't catch the king just yet, you can take down his castle and you can arrest all his guards.
You're talking about the affiliates.
Exactly. Law enforcement is aggressively targeting his infrastructure, seizing the servers and his partners, the affiliates, many of whom might not be in Russia. They might be in Europe or the Americas or Asia.
If you arrest the people who are doing the actual work and you take away all the tools, the king becomes pretty irrelevant.
That's the idea. You disrupt the entire ecosystem. You make it dangerous and difficult to do business with him. If being a Black Basta affiliate now means you're very likely to get a visit from the police, people will stop signing up. You effectively starve the beast.
So for the listeners out there, maybe they run a business, maybe they just have a home network. This all sounds very high level. But groups like Black Basta hit everyone. This brings us to segment 7. Protecting yourself. What can we actually do?
No, you're absolutely right. They hit everyone. Small businesses, local governments, school districts. The advice from law enforcement is consistent, and it's vital. First and foremost, multi-factor authentication, MFA.
It's so annoying, I know. Every single time I log in, I have to find my phone to get that little code. But it actually works.
It is the single most effective barrier you can put up. Put MFA on everything, especially your remote access points like VPNs and your email. If they steal your password but they don't have your physical phone to get that 6-digit code, they can't get in. It stops 99% of these automated attacks cold.
What about stopping that lateral movement you mentioned earlier, if they do somehow manage to get in?
Network segmentation. Don't let every computer on your network talk to every other computer. If the receptionist's laptop gets infected, it should not be able to ping the main database server or the manufacturing control system. You segment your network into zones, so a breach in one room doesn't burn down the entire house. It limits the blast radius.
And backups. You mentioned they go out of their way to delete them.
Offline backups. And I cannot stress the word offline enough. We call it being air-gapped.
Meaning literally unplugged from the network.
Literally, physically unplugged. If your backup drive is plugged into the network, or if it's a cloud backup that is always synced in real time, the ransomware will find it and encrypt the backup too. It'll just crawl down the wire and lock your only escape route. You need a copy that is physically disconnected. Tape drives, disconnected, external hard drives. That is your absolute fail-safe. If everything else burns to the ground, you can rebuild from that.
And I assume keeping your software updated and using advanced tools like EDR helps as well.
Absolutely. EDR, that's endpoint detection and response. It's like having a dedicated security guard on every single laptop, watching for suspicious behavior. If a program suddenly tries to encrypt 1,000 files in 1 second, the EDR can see that abnormal behavior and kill the process automatically.
But we can't forget the human factor in all this.
Never. Training. Regular security awareness training is crucial. You have to teach your people not to click that weird link in that suspicious invoice email, and you need to have an incident response plan written down before you get hacked.
Right. When the screens all go black, that is not the time to be Googling how to fix ransomware.
Exactly. You shouldn't be scrambling to find the phone number for your IT consultant or your legal counsel. You should have a plan in a physical binder, printed out, ready to go. You need to know exactly who to call, what to shut down, and how to communicate.
That's great advice. It's really about being prepared, not paranoid.
That's it, exactly.
So, bringing it all home, we've gone from a faceless piece of malware to a named individual, Oleg Nefedov. We've looked at the very real corporate structure of a $100 million criminal enterprise.
And we've seen that the veil of anonymity is, well, it's piercing. This is the big takeaway for me. The combination of financial forensics on the blockchain, incredible international cooperation, especially the work between Ukraine and Germany and these insider leaks, it all means that these operators can't hide forever.
It really does feel like a turning point.
It does. We are seeing in real time that digital actions have very real physical consequences.
So here's a thought to leave everyone with. If law enforcement can now track these so-called untouchable leaders through the blockchain and through their code patterns, are we entering a new era where cybercrime finally carries real-world personal accountability? Or will the criminals just evolve again? Will they find a way to go even deeper underground into something we haven't even thought of yet?
That is the arms race we're all living in. As the defenses get better, the offenses get more complex. But for today, at least, the good guys scored a major point.
Indeed they did. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Keep your systems updated, and for the love of all your data, please keep your backups offline.
Stay safe out there.
And a quick nod again to pressreleasecloud.io for making this deep dive possible. We'll see you next time.